Hey, anytime you can parlay a Browns win with a Ravens loss, it's a pretty good day in my book. So type me in the comment section down below while this intro video rolls. Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. Coming up on today's show, we got three kind of news rumor stories for you guys. We'll have the latest on Kareem Hunt, but first we'll talk about whether or not Baker's a little bit unhappy, if he's a little grumpy. He had some interesting things to say in an interview with Kurt Warner, and we'll wrap up the show looking at Myles Garrett's sack numbers and whether or not he can become the top of the leaderboard at the end of the season in Browns franchise history. So to unpack all these Browns rumors, we like to use these Bernie heads. It's a scale of believability. 0 Bernie heads means fake news, not happening, all the way up to 4 Bernie heads, Believeland, take it to the bank. 1 Bernie head, small shred of truth. 2 Bernie heads, people are talking. Maybe there's some actual juice behind it. 3 Bernie heads, pretty likely. And so let's get into the first story. Is Baker unhappy? First, for me, I'm giving this 4 Bernie heads, okay? Baker had an interview with Kurt Warner and then Mary Kay Cabot. She talked about it later on. And he revealed his frustrations in that interview. We'll get a good quote for you out of that in just a little bit. But first off, not one, but 2 dads have come for Baker's head. His throat, everything basically. OBJ Sr. shared a video showing all the times Baker missed Odell Beckham through the first couple of weeks of the season when OBJ returned. And it also doesn't help that Baker's injuries have really magnified his shortcomings and his poor play at times. But throughout it all, Baker has left more Browns fans confused than, I would say, sure, right? A little more gray than black and white going into this season about the future of Baker Mayfield. So is Baker the guy? I'm going to pose this question to you guys. Here's the deal. I'll make this the pinned comment. So let's say you get a YouTube ad break right about now. Make sure you scroll on down, reply, hit your Y's for yes or your N's for no. Let's get to the quote, because this is what Baker said from the horse's mouth to Kurt Warner, which got picked up by Mary Kay. It comes down to trying to find an even balance of listening to those opinions around you that truly matter. Friends, family, teammates. And that's been the tricky part about this year. It has been a lot of internal things. It hasn't been just outside noise. I have to be myself and try to do my job at 100%. He would go on to say, the guys that truly know me understand that. We know to take care of business in the building, and I need to be myself for these guys. End quote. My first thought was, he said friends, family, and teammates. Are coaches teammates? I thought it was very deliberate that he maybe or maybe not did not include Kevin Stefanski in coaching. And then he said internal things. I think Baker is showing a little bit of colors of, I'm pretty pissed off the way I've been criticized by 2 teammates, well, 1 former teammate's dads. And I mean, sure, the Browns released OBJ, so you got to envision that means they took Baker's side if sides were to be taken. But here's what Stefanski had to say, as I try to get my voice back, by the way. But he said this, I talk to Baker every day, so I think we've got a good line of communication. But I think we all, coaches and players, as we move forward with these big games, AFC opponent this week, our focus is always going to be on the same page and doing what we need to get a victory. In English, that's coach's talk, right? You don't really gain much from it. You weren't expecting him to go out there and say, Baker and I, we share, moonlight bathtub sesh together. You weren't going to get anything super juicy out of it. He was just going to answer the question and try to move on with his day, because probably the least favorite part of any coach's day is having to speak to the media. So Baker unhappy. I'm giving it 4 heads. Twice you've had dads come for his throats, and the injuries aren't helping out. And I don't know. It seems to be maybe a bit of a trouble in paradise. The honeymoon is not off to a fantastic start. Maybe they didn't get the honeymoon suite, and now they're just in the queen bed. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. The next story here is Kareem Hunt going to play versus Las Vegas. That's this Saturday. I did not misspeak. It's a Saturday game, no college football, in Week 15. If he's playing, 1 Bernie head. It came out that after the game, it looked like Hunt's injuries was not too serious, and there was some optimism. I'm guessing some pictures were taken of his ankle this morning, and the pictures did not show good results. We'll talk about that in just a second, but first, I know you hate injuries because I hate injuries. I wouldn't say injuries have derailed this season. I can think of a couple more teams that have had it worse. It's kind of like the Ravens, but this is not a Ravens show. But subscribe if you also hate injuries, because it would have been a lot better if Baker was just perfect, clean bill of health all season long. Let's dive into Kareem Hunt, though. He left Sunday's game with that ankle injury kind of early on. Now, Hunt wanted to return to the game. He was kind of pacing up and down the sideline like a cheetah at the zoo. But Stefanski and the coaches felt, let's just keep him out and kind of play it cautious and conservative. And that was a little interesting to me that they said, we're going to keep him out, playing a little conservative. It's a close game in the fourth quarter. If someone's okay, you got to play him, okay? If he's not healthy, then you can't play him. But he made it sound like he kind of was healthy. They just opted to kind of play it safe. Now, Stefanski said in his press conference earlier today, and it's been reported by a handful of people, including Adam Schefter, that Kareem Hunt, also Troy Hill, unlikely to play Saturday. So with that being said, you guys do such a great job of this every single time I make this call. Type your 27s and your 23s in the comment section below to wish them a quick recovery. I can't guarantee they're going to see this, but I can guarantee that the Browns fans are some of the best fans, if not the best fans in the NFL. They're always rooting for their Brownies, always pulling for their players. So type your 27s and your 23s down below to wish them a quick recovery. Kareem Hunt so far this season, he's only played in 8 games. He missed a handful of weeks with that calf strain and now an ankle injury popping up. And so his stats aren't really telling, but when he's been out there, we know how explosive and kind of game-changing he can be. He's got 5 TDs on the season, rushed for nearly 400 yards. He's paired with Nick Chubb, by the way, too, and has 174 yards out of the backfield. And overall, between carries and receptions, he's got 100 touches. As for Nick Chubb, who you can expect to get 90% of the workload, sure, you gave it to Dearness Johnson a couple times. I like how they did that last week, too. I thought Johnson gave you a good change of pace, but went off a little bit. But Nick Chubb, 25 carries and 75 yards in his last 2 weeks. This Browns run game has kind of come to a halt, but it's a small sample size, so hopefully it can bounce back this weekend. But no Kareem Hunt this weekend. It seems that way. I'm giving this just one burn. He had that he will play in Week 15 against the Raiders. Probably doesn't help it's a day early, but it's also just a day. It's not like a Thursday game. So even if it was on Sunday, the language used made it sound like it wouldn't be okay for Sunday, but not okay for Saturday. We're going to get to our third and final story in just a moment, but first, we got a great deal going on at BetUS. Our sportsbook partner hooks you up with a 125% deposit bonus. If you don't want to bet in the Browns, which, by the way, can we talk about how the Browns let the worst backdoor cover in gambling history? Probably not, but close to it on Sunday. 2.5-point favorites, and out of nowhere, the Ravens come back to cover. Atrocious. Chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code right there, Browns125. They hook you up with a 125% deposit bonus, so go ahead and do that today. You could also bet on this. Myles Garrett to win Defensive Player of the Year. At BetUS, he is plus 225. If you don't know what that means, let's say you bet $10, you're going to win $22.50. It's all on a scale of $100, so let's say you want to be a big roll, kind of big dick in the locker room kind of guy. Bet 100, that's 225. Make sure you check that out over at BetUS. If you think Myles Garrett is going to win Defensive Player of the Year, those odds, I would imagine, are only going to get worse from the consumer point of view, meaning less return on your investment. But speaking of Myles Garrett, is he going to get the Cleveland Browns franchise history all-time sack record this season? 3 Bernie heads. I think he is right there. He is right behind a Browns great in Clay Matthews, but he is on a rampage this year, starting with that 4.5 sack performance against Chicago in the beginning of the year, and just one after another. Picked up his 15th sack on Sunday. That gave him the record for most sacks in a season by a Browns player. Now he's looking for the franchise all-time record. Not in the season, just in history of Cleveland Browns football, which is pretty amazing to say that Myles Garrett will get this in under 5 seasons. But here's where he is right now. Clay Matthews at 62. He's the all-time sack leader. Myles Garrett, 4.5 behind him, 57.5. He needs 5 more to outright own the record, and the Michael Dean Perry left in the dust at 51.5. I will note this, though. It is a little interesting just because they didn't start counting sacks until 1982. I'm not going to go back and watch all Clay Matthews snaps before 1982. He played in the 70s beforehand, but I think it's worth noting that maybe it's not completely accurate. Like if it was counted today, I'm not sure. I wasn't there. But let me know. Will Garrett pass Matthews this year? We know he's passing him at some point. And Myles Garrett's going to pass Clay Matthews. No doubt about it. It's a question of whether or not he'll do it this year. Type your ones for yes or twos for no down below. Look at the next 4 games here. You need 5 sacks. I'm not interested in 4.5 sacks to tie the record. You're going to own the records. 5 sacks in 4 games. Easy-ish offensive lines coming up. The Raiders have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, including their first-round pick in Alex Leatherwood, which has been a complete flop pretty much so far. The Packers, they got pretty banged up last night on Sunday Night Football against the Bears, but their offensive line is not bad, but it's hurt. The Steelers, we know they can be they're just hard to predict. Mike Tomlin can get them playing great one Sunday and awful the next. And then the Bengals, kind of middle-of-the-road offensive line, but it's not like a top-tier offensive line. So overall, if you're going to need to get 4.5 or 5 sacks in 4 games, those are 4 offensive lines I think you could do it against. We'll see you later here on the Cleveland Browns Report.